everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to another Makers with Heart Mystery Envelope video hop. This month, Julie sent out the envelopes and in it were some embellishments from Cape Cod. So Julie's rules are pretty easy. She wanted to make it easy because summer is crazy, and she said that we could use any papers, accents, ink stamps, anything I would like, but the product that I use must be available right now on our maker websites, and then I have to incorporate at least one of the die cut images that she sent to us. So I'm going to use this stamp set from Cape Cod Scrapbooking. The stamp set is available. The stamp set with the thin cuts bundle is no longer available, but just the stamp set, you can still get that. My sentiment for both cards is from With Love. And then for my first card, I'm going to use this embossing folder called Cascading Dots. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to do some stamping first. So I've brought in the light side of peach cardstock, and then I'm going to stamp with papaya and desert rose, and I have this seahorse image loaded onto my block. So I'm going to do the rock and roll technique. So just ink up your stamp with the lighter color and then just roll the edges of your stamp in the darker color for some dimension and interest. Okay, so we have that stamped out, and then I'm going to bring in some shortbread, and I'm going to stamp with toffee, and I'm going to stamp this coral image. And then I'm going to bring in some honey butter, and I'm going to stamp some seashells in Sundance and papaya. Okay, so we'll do a couple of each, and then I'm just going to fussy cut everything. So you don't need the dies. They make it easier, but you can just fussy cut. So there isn't a die for these seashells anyway, but for the other two images there is. I'm not sure if we'll be getting more of those in stock, but you can always use the stamp set. Okay, so I've sped this up, but I'm just gonna keep the fussy cutting in. They're simple images to fussy cut. So I find it's easier if you leave a little bit of an edge of cardstock around the image, and then as you're cutting, move your cardstock against your scissors. And it makes the process easier. Sorry, some of this is off camera. And our scissors are the best for fussy cutting, the micro tip scissors. So I'll leave a link in the description below. Okay, so the image that I'm going to use that Julie sent is this seashell. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my Altenew Ultra Sticky Matte, and I'm going to add some color to this image. They're craft, they're kind of a heavyweight die cut, and I like to add a little ink to them to add some color. So I'm going to add papaya. Just add a little dimension and color to the image. Okay, so now we have all the components, and now we're going to make our background. Okay, so I'm going to use this section of the cascading dots where the dots are sort of separated and there's fewer of them. And I'm going to make it look like there's air bubbles floating in the water. Okay, so I've got a piece of Lagoon cardstock cut at 4 by 5 1/4. And then I'm going to add some white daisy ink, and I'm going to deboss the white daisy into the image that I run through with the embossing folder. So I'm going to add ink to the embossed images in this embossing folder. So it's the ones that are up that you can feel when you run your fingers along it. And I'm just going to roll my brayer on this embossing folder. Now I screwed up at the top of that where I got too much ink, so I'm going to have to clean that up and then go back. When you run your brayer along this, go really light because you don't want to get ink on the debossed portion or on the lower, not the raised bits. You just want the dots to catch the ink. So go pretty lightly. And I still had to kind of clean it up because you don't want ink to get it in between the dots. You just want the dots to get color. So I'm adding a little spritz of water with my distress sprayer to the back of the cardstock so I don't get any cracking. And then I'm just going to place it in my embossing folder and run it through. So it's very faint, but it does give a little more impression to the debossed dots where the white ink caught. Okay, so clean all this stuff up because you don't want anything to dry on your tools. And now we can continue on. So I have a piece of toffee cardstock, and I'm just cutting this down to 4 inches and then just kind of deciding how tall I want my ocean floor to be. And then I'm going to tear to make an uneven sandy ocean floor. All right, we'll bring our sticky mat again, and I'm going to use a blending brush, and we'll add some toffee ink all around the edges here, just to give it a little more definition and interest and texture, looking like there's some texture, just inking around the edges. Okay. All right, now I'm going to stamp my sentiment. So I'll bring in Thinking of You. And I'm going to stamp that out in espresso ink. Okay, now I wanted it to look even more like sand, so I'm going to bring in an espresso shimmer brush, and I'm going to lightly tap some splatters all over that piece to make it look like sand. So sometimes you have to get your shimmer brush going, so I like to make a little puddle on a block, and then I can get lots of splatters. Okay, so now we've got all the components. We can start building our card. I like to use wet glue when I'm using an embossed piece, just so that I don't press out any of the texture with a tape runner. So I'm going to add that to my card front with a white border. And then we'll add the sand, ocean floor. And we'll just start building and putting all these components together. So we'll glue that down. And then I'm going to add some foam tape to that piece of coral. First, I'm just going to lay things out just to see how they all look. We'll add some foam tape. We're just building our card front. So I will leave a playlist at the end of this video and also a link in the description below. Make sure you check out all the other Makers with Heart. We all publish on the same day today, all of our mystery envelope videos, so you can see the cool things that everyone else has done with these supplies that Julie sent to us. And I will also make a list of all these supplies in the description below with links, so you can do some shopping. Okay, so I'm just building my card front here, deciding where things should go. And then we'll add the seahorse with some foam tape. I have an underwater ocean scene. Okay, so I'll have some close-up shots in a second. That's my finished card. So stay tuned. I'm going to make another one in just a second. Here's some close-up shots. Okay, now I'm going to use the Cape Cod card making. I'm just using these tufts of seagrass, those images from this stamp set. And the embossing folder I'm going to use is the Sunbeam embossing folder. Okay, so I'm going to do the same technique. However, this time I'm going to use my brayer on the debossed portion so that the bits in between the rays are going to catch the ink. And then the embossed portions are going to remain the color of the cardstock. So I'm using Sundance and I'm using honey butter cardstock. And then we'll run that through. And so in between those dotted rays, we'll have color. Okay. Get things cleaned up real quick and then we can move on. I'll bring in my sticky mat again and some papaya ink. And I'm just going to add some color around the edges of the card. And just on the upper portion, because the bottom of it, I'm going to do some sand again. So we'll just add color around the top edges. So that really looks like a sunset. Okay. And I've brought in some toffee cardstock and I'm going to do that paper tearing technique again to make some sand. Okay, so we're looking at the sunset over a sand dune. We'll go ahead and ink the edges of this one with some toffee ink, just like the last one. You get to see this technique again. I'll quickly ink around the edges to just add a little dimension and a look of texture. And I'll splatter it with some espresso shimmer brush as well. But first, I'm going to add my sentiment. I'll stamp "Thank you so much" in espresso, and then we'll splatter. Okay, so I'll bring in my splat box, and we'll add a few splatters. Okay. Now we can start looking at the different components. So that's the basic setup of the card. So from Julie's pack, I'm going to use this seagull image and some periwinkle ink. And just going to ink that seagull up. And then from the embellishment pack that I have, I'm going to pull another seagull, ink that up in periwinkle. And then I'm going to pull these little palm trees. I'll show the inking of one, but I wound up using two of them. They're so cute. I wish this pack came with more palm trees. So I'll have to get another pack. And then just the ink that's left over on my brush it's toffee. So the palm leaves are in sage and then the trunk is in toffee. So we're getting there. That's a basic layout of the card. And then I inked up two seashells. I used one that Julie sent and then a larger one from the embellishment pack. And then I'm just going to add I'm going to doodle some little lines for the seashells in with a brown journaling pen just to add a little more detail. And then I'm going to bring in that stamp with the little tufts of seagrass, and I'm going to add them in sage ink around the base of the palm trees. I'll stamp a couple of those images, and then we're good to go. So ready to start assembling. Okay, so this one's landscape, and same thing, I'll have a white border around the edges, and we'll just get everything put together and added to the card front. Super cute. Just a few embellishments. I love the texture that the embossing folder adds. Just kind of playing with the placement. We'll put the seashells in the foreground, and then the palm trees will be further away. And then we'll add the seagulls. So cute. So be sure to click on the playlist so you can check out all the other cool things that Makers with Heart have done with these supplies. Again, I will leave a list of supplies in the description below with links. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And then you'll be able to find all of my videos. And thanks for watching.